Hello everybody, this is going to be a quick demo on the MapReduce framework and the different parts of it. First of all, there's an interface in your repos called MapReduceFramework. It has a rather intimidating set of generic types. MapReduceFramework is a very general tool, so it has a lot of ways to sort of customize it. And we'll talk about each one of these in turn in a minute. It's MapReduce, so you can see that it's got a mapper and what's called an accumulator, combiner, reducer, which is rather ridiculously long titled interface. Also, the big thing is, the big method is MapReduceAll. So you're going to take some array of elements as an input, and you're going to produce this map of keys to the resulting value. You can sort of see E is here for the elements of the input, key is K, and R is for the reductions in the end, the MapReduce part. There's some in the between, which we'll talk about soon enough. There's an implementation of this called Stream MapReduceFramework. And we can dig into this in the code. And if I do tab stream MapReduceFramework, I can sort of see here we've got, it's a constructor, and it takes a mapper and one of these accumulator combiner reducers. I just check that they're not null and hang on to them. And the mapper and this accumulator combiner reducer function methods just access them. They just sort of return them. It's just kind of a way for me to express that these two things exist and you need them. This streams one is a little special. I use the Java streams framework to just convert it and run it. You don't have to worry about this too much. You're going to build several of these in the class, and you'll actually make what's called a matrix MapReduce framework, which will perform just as well, if not better, than the streams one. This one's just a reference one. It uses sort of the standard thing from Java, and so I'm going to build a little example today that shows off how to do it. This is just a reference thing, but the main takeaway from here is, this is the sort of thing that you're going to build, a framework that takes a mapper and an accumulator combiner reducer. These methods are pretty simple. They always just return what you are constructed with. And then MapReduceAll is the magic maker here, and it takes the input and returns this map. I sort of showed really quickly the stream magic, that how you do it in Java streams. We're going to build our own in this class. The details there are not too important, but you'll get plenty taste of that soon enough. Back to sort of the slideshow. In those mappers and accumulator combiner reducers, there's sort of the 5 customization methods that you need. First of all, you need to be able to map an input element to a list of key value pairs. That's the map portion. And then down here we've reduce. MapReduce is what is called sort of advanced versions of it. People are coming up with more ways to control it, including Spark is sort of a framework that we'll talk about a little bit in this class. Basically, you need to be able to, for all the key value pairs that this guy emits, every time you see a new key, you got to be able to create a mutable container for the values that are emitted or returned over and over again when you call map on all the input. So you got to be able to create it the first time you see it. You got to be able to add a value to a mutable container. For the more sophisticated frameworks, you got to be able to combine one container into another. We'll do that in the matrix one. And finally, you got to reduce one of these mutable containers that's gathered up all the values that have been emitted or returned in this list for each key into the final result. And so we'll talk a little bit about some motivating examples in class and in the prep, but these are the 5 functions you need. They're sort of broken up into 2 interfaces. You've seen them. The mapper does, the mapping of an input element to these list of key value pairs. And you can sort of see the interface here. It takes a map, it takes an item, and it returns one of these lists of key value pairs. I've used the map entry interface that takes a key and a value. You built default entry in the hash table assignment, so you can use that here. Just a really quick breakdown on this has 3 of the types for the MapReduce framework, E for the input type, and K and V for the key and value output types. When you're done with that class, this one is pretty much custom to every application that does MapReduce framework. Oftentimes you have a custom mapper. These can sometimes be reused. They're very, it makes sense to bundle the 4 of them together. And so this is the part where you're dealing with accepting these key value pairs and collecting them up and reducing them later. So this is the accumulator combiner reducer. You can see it here. It has if mapper has the first 3 of the 5, this one has the last 3 of 5 with V overlapped. V is the value. A is this mutable container, sometimes called an accumulator. That's why it's called A. And R for the reduction value, the sort of final value we have here. Really quickly, I'm going to build this, a version of this that does department total credits to some map, I'm trying to map departments to the total number of taught credits. And so I'm going to build this really quickly. You can see it makes a mapper, an accumulator reducer, makes a framework. It's going to use that stream one that I built, just as sort of a reference one. And then it's going to do the magic where it says, take this framework, which has this mapper and this reducer, and reduce the whole thing down from this, all the courses, to this answer that I want. So let's build this really quickly. I'm going to come back over here to IntelliJ. I've started off, I've used, from the filter example video, you should have seen sort of taking the registrar's courses. This is from spring 2022. I filtered out just to the McKelvey ones. And so that's going to give me back these McKelvey courses. What I can do is just quickly say, ooh, not take caps lock off, for course, oh, with a U, not courseting, course, and courses, or McKelvey courses as an array. If I just print out that course really quickly, we can see what we have to work with here. I'm just going to hit Control-Shift-F10 on Linux and have it print out. You can see there's a lot of different courses in here. You can see our favorites here, Introduction to Parallel Programming. Down here is going to be 425. Oh, yeah, programming languages. You want to take that next. And so you can see all of the classes in all the different departments. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to build something that that converts these over. And we're going to build a mapper. We're going to have a mapper video later, and then a reducer or accumulator, combiner, reducer method thing later. But let's just build a really quick client that uses them now, so you can see them in action. We can take out this part where we printed this out because we don't want to get that in the way of our final output. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, well, I could just say new, and I built this, the course department to name, course department name to credit amount mapper. This thing should actually be called, I'll just rename it right now, the course department. I changed this to actually have a department because I was sick of everything being string all the time. To department credit amount mapper. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take in this course and it's going to emit for every course, it's going to emit how many people it has in the class, right? It's going to take, it's going to build this part where it's going to take this course, find out what its department is. That's going to be the key that it's going to emit. It's going to find out how many people are in all the sections, multiply it by the number of credits, and emit that single entry as a key value pair. So what that allows us to do is, if I catch that, what will happen is with every course that I end up passing in, they'll all get passed to this mapper, and we'll build this later in a later video. But this guy is going to be emitting that information or returning it to the framework so that it can then gather all those key value pairs and reduce them later. So let's just call this a mapper. I like to always grab them in, I like to grab them by the interface as opposed to, you could just go like this if you wanted. I tend to like to do this part where I sort of show off exactly what they're going from. So this is a mapper. That's all I need to know. It goes from course to department to double. Then I'm going to build basically an accumulator. I've already built this one too. It's going to be called the summing double one. Accumulator, combiner, reducer. We can tunnel into that really quickly. This one creates array lists, adds containers to it. That's how it accumulates. It combines things by adding all. In the end, because it's the summing double one, it's going to take these values and add them in, or add them all up and return that sum. And so if I use these two in conjunction, I can get the answer that I want. And again, I can do this as summing double, and that would be my accumulator, combiner, reducer. Like I said, I like to sometimes always use the least specific thing that I need. That would be this interface right here. And you can sort of see these two will always line up because those are both the values. So this is E, K, V. This is also V. This is the mutable container A. And this is the reduction value double. So with that, we're going to make our MapReduce framework. I'm going to use the stream MapReduce framework. We're going to make that, and I'm going to pass it mapper, and I'm going to pass it the accumulator, combiner, reducer. You can see I always want to call it reducer. I I am tempted to call this a reducer because this is a ridiculous mouthful to say this every time. In some ways, it's nice to be a little. In some ways, it's nice to be more explicit. Some ways, it's kind of annoying. So let me make a framework here real quick. And I know that they're going to be these three, and then it's going to go to list of double and back to double. And so see, now we have everybody's happy. I've made these two things. Now I have this framework, and now I'm just going to get this framework to do the work that I want to do. And so I'm going to say framework map reduce all on the McKelvey courses as an array. That's my input. And what I'm going to get back is, I know I'm going to get back this thing that goes from department, because that's the key right here, to double, which is the final value. And that is going to be the result. I can call this like department to total credits. Total taught credits. It's sort of a weight of how much, all the students times students in all the courses with times all the times like a 3-credit class to sort of get a sense on the weight of every class, every department. I can say for entry, and that's going to be one of these things. So I'll just be like department to double entry in this map.entry set. And by map, I mean department to total credits map. Let's do it this way. And Shift F6 will get you to rename things, which I like. And now if I sys out, what I can do here is just sys out the entry. See how that prints out. Why didn't that go? Oh, I'm going to say map.entry just to make the importer happy. If I print that out, it's going to print out all of our information here. You can sort of see the department, it's got its code, its name, and the total amount of credits. And you can see, you could imagine looking at this and deciding, oh, maybe I should bust out a higher TA budget for computer science and engineering, or whatever you're trying to do. Maybe we should get more, maybe we should allocate resources based on this. Not obviously completely, because universities are more than just the number of credits they teach, but just kind of an interesting answer to a question that is easily acquired. These little bit of a customization that we'll build in future videos are very simple, and this framework, we're going to build a couple of them, but once they're built, you can reuse them for a lot of different things. So hopefully this was helpful. More videos will come, and good luck and have fun on these assignments.